Hello, my name is Paul, and I wrote this book. It's called Stick Boy. It's about a boy who's a stick boy in a 3D world. He lives in a little town called Little Town, and the book is about how he figures things out about himself and about the place he lives in. Today, I'm here to talk about designing covers. So we start with a blank rectangle, and then we put things into it. The first thing we put into it is the title. The title is the name of the book. We call it the title because we're professional. And then, as well as the title, you have the author name. Then we put the illustrator name. What else we're going to put on the cover? Art. And then, along with the art, we put a thing called a strapline. Look, a strapline is like something that says, like on Phil's book, it says, "Ready to take on the world." It's a little piece of text that tells you something about the book. And then we've got a quote. Okay, what else have we got? Oh, we've got a thing called a flash. A flash is like something that says first edition or signed by the author. What else have we got? So, series title would be something like The Dork Diaries or Wimpy Kid. And then it goes into the bookshop and they put a sticker on it. Whack, sticker. And sometimes they put 2 stickers on it. In Stick Boy, when we think about all of those things, we kind of start with the big ones, which are the title, so the name of the story, and the art. And the very first idea that I had for Stick Boy was this. So you can see it's really rough. It doesn't even look like Stick Boy. I think at this point I didn't really know what he was going to look like. So we draw a big rectangle. We're going to fit in all this stuff. We're going to start with the title. So I'm going to do what I did in the beginning. I'm going to put the title at the top. So when you're designing the cover, you want to leave a bit of space all around. You don't have to go right up to the edge. So let's do that. Let's leave a bit of space. And when you're putting in names of books, so when you're drawing this cover for your story, here's a tip. Do the outside letters first, because what can happen is you might end up running out of space. What comes before K? C. I'll put a C in here, and then I'm going to put an I here, a circle on it, and then I'm going to put a T. I'm going to put a little t because it's going to fit better. And you make your own rules when you're doing this. So there's stick. I mean, that's not brilliant, is it? But we can fix that afterwards. Oh, I've got an idea for that. Okay, so, and then we're going to put boy. B-O-Y. I can spell it. Okay, I'll put a circle in there. And I've got a circle here and a circle here, so I'm going to make these circles too. So we've got some kind of harmony. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to fill this in like that. The big thing on our list was art. So let's make this one sort of all about Stick Boy. So to draw Stick Boy, you do sort of semicircle like this, and then you do another semicircle like this, and he's got a little curl here, and then he's got 2 eyes here and here, and he's got a little mouth. Let's make him happy. And then between his eyes he's got a bit of a nose, and he often has eyebrows. Let's make it a bit thicker. Make his nose a bit thicker. The pen is really raggy. I like this pen, but I think it's wearing out. It's got a little bit of a raggediness on it. So let's give him a wave. And I'm going to put his other hand going down here. If you want to see how to draw a stick, you can go to stickboy.tv and download some instructions, or just read them on the screen. It's a little bit wobbly. That's okay. Sometimes sticks a bit wobbly. I mean, we're all a bit wobbly sometimes. I'm going to put some clouds in so that we know he's in the world. So there's some space here. I'm going to put my name in here. And over here, I'm going to put the strap line. I'm going to use my other pen. These pens are called Uni Fine Line, and you can buy them in packs with different sizes. And small sizes are good for details, and big sizes are good for bits of colouring in. I'm going to call it, what is it? He's a stick boy in a 3D world. The stuff artist tells us about Stick. It's a stick boy. It's written by me. He's a stick boy in a 3D world. The thing that it doesn't have is it doesn't have the world. And what we can do is we can put some buildings in so that we know that it is the world. I'm going to put one here. And I'm going to put one here. It doesn't have to be perfect the first time. What I do sometimes is I use tracing paper to go over it once I've done it. I'm going to put a little door here on this house. And I'm going to put a lamppost. And maybe a dog. I haven't put a quote on here because I don't like quotes on covers. The other thing I haven't done here is colour, because that would take a long time, but you can colour it in any way you like. So one of the things to keep in mind when you're doing it is like keep a little bit of space around the outside. And the other thing that I did here was it's a little trick that if your cover is this shape, then make your letters that shape as well. So, and then it feels a bit like, designed, feels designery. There we go, we're just going to make an S there in that shape. Those are the proportions of your letters. And then the other thing that is good to think about is the shape of things. So this is our cover, and we have, at the top we have this wide Stick Boy title, and then at the bottom we have this circle which is his face. And what that does is it kind of helps you to start reading from the top and head towards the bottom. And then the less important stuff like my name and the strapline, you read afterwards. Now I'm going to talk about the steps that we took when we were trying to figure out what to do with the cover that you see today. So we started off with something that we've just drawn. We had the title on top here, and then we put some big art underneath, that Stick. And then to give you some idea about his world, we use these flashes. So that was fine, but it doesn't tell you enough about the world, I think. So what we did next was we added some of the characters. And here you can see Ekam and Milo and Nick, Sam and Gretchen. But it's very busy, and Stick is a little bit lost in the middle of all those other kids. So we then tried this approach where we put some more space around Stick so that you can see him more easily. And then we kept the flashes and we put our strapline on top, and that's sort of okay, but it's still a lot happening. So then we thought, well, what happens if we take everything away? What if we go right back to that original idea and use his head as the O of boy? What does that give us? And it gives us a really clever and clear and bright cover, but it doesn't tell us anything about the world. So we looked at this and we thought, okay, the type is a little bit young. So this little T, this little I, this little Y. But this book is for kids who like to read books for reading age of 8 to 12. So we thought, let's make it a little bit older. Let's go back and see what are the things we have. So the things we have the title. So we tried something a little bit more grown up. So the capital letters are a bit serious. They're like blocky and regular. And then we have Stick, of course. So up until this, we've been sort of trying this approach. And then we thought, let's see what happens if we do this. And there's a principle called the figure-ground relationship, which was something that was discovered in the early 20th century, which says anything that's in the lower half of the page will be more memorable and appear to have more authority or to be more important than the other items on the page. And we thought, well, okay, this is good, but we do need to bring in the world. And we've already figured out that when we add the rest of the kids on, it gets too busy. But there is another way to show the world of Littletown and the world of Stick, and that is to show the buildings. Taking the buildings and taking the title and taking Stick, we ended up with this. So you get the contrast between Stick and the buildings. He's a stick figure, but the buildings are three-dimensional. He's a stick boy in a 3D world. So, like, you can see that we tried lots of different things when we were trying to figure out how the book should look, what the cover should be. And I think that's the most important thing. Like, don't be afraid to make mistakes. Don't be afraid to try things just to see if they work, even if you can't imagine what they're going to be before you start drawing them. And then the most important things to think about of all of those things that I showed you is really the title and the art. And in the art then, think about the character and the location, and think about what the character is doing. Like, Stick is running because that's how the story starts. He starts running, and then you open the book and he's running again. Look at other books and see what they do. This book here, you've got a dad eating pizza wearing a wrestling costume. That makes you curious about what's inside the book. You want to make your reader curious, and then they'll pick up your book and they'll have a look inside. Another one is this one, called Freddy vs. School by Neil Cameron. Here's Freddy. The location is given to you by the scribbly doodly squiggly school copybook doodly stuff all around the edges. This one is designed by Marseille Jordan, and it's by the artist by Selim Sonu. The book is by Jason Reynolds. Again, you've got the character doing something in a location, and all of those things are telling you what the book's about. And here you've got a book by Jamie Littler, signed by Ben Hughes. Again, you've got a character who looks kind of cool. He's got some pals with him this time, and you know that this is a fantasy because these are not regular kind of pals that you have. And then there's lots of other stuff around the character that gives you a sense of the world and gets you thinking about, well, what's going on here? And that's what you want on your covers. Get your readers wondering what's going on inside. That's your job when you're designing the cover. Thank you for listening. My name is Paul, and I wrote this book.